to Religion, Economics, and Politics, and I'm your host, Morris Jackson. And we're back in with another great episode. And I have two wonderful brothers with us, man. It seems like an eternity since they've joined us the last time, but I'm so glad to have them back in the studio with us. I'm saying in the studio. Well, hey, maybe I'm speaking that prophetically, but I'm glad to have them join us via podcast virtually here. We're going to talk about the spiritual principles of stewardship or financial stewardship. I think it's so important. And before we jump into it, I want to set the tone, and I want to give you a couple of scriptures here because we're talking about the spiritual principles of financial stewardship. And this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, especially because I'm finding a lot of people that are in the church, call themselves Christians, or may follow a particular faith, whether it's Islam or whether it's whatever the religion is. I'm gonna give you these scriptures, and I actually want you to get a pen, get a paper, your iPhone out, whatever it is that you use. You can actually type this out yourself or just put a reference in there. But let's look at this, what the Bible says about an inheritance. And this is in your Bible, Christians, okay? So we're looking at Proverbs 13 and 22. A good man, listen to this, fathers, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So we're talking about a legacy here. We're talking about generational wealth. When I hear that, he leaves an inheritance to his children's children. But the sinner's wealth is what? Laid up for the righteous. So somebody's going to get that money. So you might as well be the good man and make sure that you're doing the right thing on the front end. I'll give you another one. So we say, well, what's money got to do with all of this? Money has everything to do with it. Just make sure you keep it in its proper perspective. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. It says, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Now that's pretty blunt. I mean, it's pretty straight up. I don't see any wiggle room there. There's no gray area. I'm gonna read it again. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, for his family, and especially for those in his household, your wife, your children, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Just let that sink in. So we have a responsibility as heads of household to take care of our family, making sure that we leave an inheritance for our children's children. Now, this really, like I said, sits personal with me because I've had several family members pass away here in the last, 2 to 3 years. And some of them, had a terminal illness. Some, it was unexpected. But before I go any further, I want to stop. I just want to set the tone there. Make sure you remember those two scriptures because it's going to dovetail into what we're talking about today. And I got two more scriptures that we'll get into as the podcast goes on. But I got brother Ferguson brother Stan Ferguson here. And brother, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Brother Morris, it's great to be back with you. Yeah, it's been a little while. Time does go by fast, but thank you for welcoming me back to your platform here. I'm Stan Ferguson. I've been in the financial industry for quite a while now. I'm actually an agency manager at a local bank here that runs an insurance department. Doctoral student. The reason I actually do insurance, I would say, is because it is a way where we can help people secure their financial future. And that's one of the big drivers for me, to be able to reach those folks who probably don't understand it. And I can serve as a medium, or I can speak to them at a level where they understand it. So that's my goal. That's kind of, who I am. And again, thank you for inviting me back.
Glad to have you back, brother. Glad to have you back. Brother Akili.
Thank you, brother, for actually giving this time here on the platform. I'm Akili Shabazz. I've been in the financial industry probably about 15 to 20 years on different levels. I've been doing insurance right now probably for about 5 years. And the similar to Stan, the main catalyst was understanding the different tools that insurance could be actually could be used for and how it could be beneficial. I've been doing some actual research and seeing how other people use it and thinking that we would use it the same way if we knew that it could be used in that way. And I think part of our issue is, and I'll speak to my younger years, is the fear of insurance and the fear of not the fear of insurance, the fear of spending money on something without seeing the instant gratification from it. That's something that's actually difficult for us to do and to have the vision on how this can impact the family or the grandchildren or the great grandchildren in the years to come.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. The age of instant gratification, I think we've all fell victim to that at some point or another. And, we learn some hard lessons because, we look back and we go, had I done this or had I done that, I could have been this much further along in life. And, I do want to share two other scriptures, and I think it's going to set us up for where we're going, especially the second one here. So the first one is in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 12. And we're talking about knowledge and wisdom here. In Ecclesiastes 7 and 12, it says, for the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. I mean, I thought you said money had nothing to do with it. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. Of him who has it. Things that we didn't know before. That wisdom that we didn't have before. I'm going to read it again. Ecclesiastes 7 and 12. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. And then the second but last one, and I promise I'm not going to give y'all a whole sermon, but the last one I think is very important. Wisdom, and this is Proverbs 4 and 7, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. I think it's really important. So, there's a lot of knowledge out here, and that's great. We can get the knowledge, because the Bible also says my people perish for a lack of knowledge, but you also need wisdom. It says wisdom is the principal thing, because when you get that knowledge, you have to know how to apply the knowledge, when and where. And then you got to make sure that you understand it, because if you don't understand it, how are you going to know how and when to apply it? That's where wisdom comes into place. So I can tell you that for the longest part, brothers, that I didn't necessarily understand the importance of insurance. I didn't know how powerful insurance was. I didn't know what role insurance played when it came to an inheritance. I didn't know the role insurance played when it came to managing my wealth or protecting my wealth or my money from taxes. I mean, there's so many ways or useful ways in which insurance can be used to build wealth and to protect wealth. I have a policy. You gentlemen, like I said, I put my money where my mouth is. My wife has a policy through your agency, and we're on that road to building wealth and creating opportunities for us to be our own bank, so to speak. So, but I don't want to diverge from what we're talking about here, or put the cart before the horse. So either one of you can take this. Tell us a little bit about the knowledge that we're lacking when it comes to insurance and the role that it plays in our financial stewardship.
I guess I'll take that. Insurance, what we don't realize is that the first thing is insurance, the FDIC, was instituted in the 30s as an insurance company to support the banks and help the bank from bank failures. So when we think of of money, we normally think of banks, but really the real money in the banking industry is insurance. And the insurance companies, as well as corporations, use insurance policies for multiple reasons to support actually salaries, to support retirement plans, and to help their capital reserves. So insurance is a tool that corporations are using to strengthen their own assets is the first thing. The second thing I believe is that we as common people, I would say, we don't realize that because the corporations and the banks and the senators are using this, that there are laws in place to make sure that there are actually tax benefits. Because what they don't want to happen is the husband dies and the widower gets taxed all this money off the money that he left. So they put in laws in place so that the money that the husband, in this example, that the husband is paying on his monthly premiums is coming out and growing a tax free. Because 9 times out of 10, unless it's a corporate plan, the money that the husband is putting in has already been taxed. So they have secured that that money can grow and be accessed tax free, whether it's in the way of him passing, whether it's in the way of doing some actually family banking strategies, whatever the case is that they're using it, it can be accessed tax free. And I think that's one of the main things that we actually miss. And I would add one more thing. We think that it's only used in the case of death. There are some policies that you can get that if you get sick or terminally ill, you can draw on that policy, while you are actually living. So it can be an emergency health savings plan, if you will, for the lack of a better term. So those are three key points that I think we may overlook when it comes to insurance.
And let me, if I may just add,
Go ahead, Stan.
now Brother Akili just laid out some critical parts to what I would say the knowledge question that we kind of have here.
Right.
Is that information there, that's information that will be knowledge that we see ourselves as trying to fill that gap and get to our people. Those folks who are overlooked. If I can just step back and talk about history a little bit, there's a book, it's The History of the World. And in that book, and I can't remember the author of it, but in that book, it's a classic. They talk about why it's the wealthy who created the financial industry to protect their wealth. Now, below that, you have, at that time, a growing middle class. Well, nobody's there to watch out for the middle class. And of course, you got the poor, and definitely nobody's ever watching out for the poor. So this is our mission here, is to capture those folks who are interested, to get that knowledge to them so they can comprehend, so they can see the benefit of protecting the family, passing on to that first, second, maybe third generation through some systems, through some mediums where they can keep the family structure in place generations down the line. But it starts with, I understand it starts with being open to receive that knowledge. And I don't know where the insurance stigma came from, but if you mention insurance, folks go to sleep. Well, some people go to sleep, and then some people understand the benefits. Of course, the big corporations understand the benefits of insurance. The companies understand the benefits of insurance. Of course, the federal government understands it. But we, at our level, seem to just bypass that or ignore it, as if one day we won't grow old, one day we won't have a child that needs to go to college, one day we won't maybe want to change the roof on the house. There's so many different things. So that information is packaged in knowledge that we see ourselves as trying to build this business and get that communication out to our people So, and that, that involves anybody who wants to listen, anybody who wants to listen, who wants to, serious about it. Last point, the Chinese, they have a community, and they have a Chinese word for which I'm drawing a blank on now, where they have a life insurance type system where everybody in that community is required to put money in. Okay, everybody's required to put money in. So if somebody gets sick, they can pull from that pool of money, and they can go, and it's not commercialized like it is over here. But they understand it because they're a lot older people than the American people. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, those are some key points I just want to make about insurance and us getting that knowledge, that information out to people who need to hear it.
Both of you made some very interesting points. And I think the common thread that I heard is, even though the financial system was created by the 1%, the tools that they put in place are not limited to the 1%. Right. That knowledge. So, I tell you what really gets me, and I have to bring this up. We have people, like I said, a lot of us are, in the church or involved in some of the faith, whatever that may be. We're the main ones trying to have a fish fry or trying to do a GoFundMe to bury a loved one. And we don't think about burial insurance or a final expense insurance while we're young. But that's the time you should be thinking about it, or at least the parents should be thinking about it for their children, because that's when it's the cheapest to get it. So let me tell you, let me just tell you how cheap it is, or how cheap it can be. If you have a Netflix account, and I know people who have the Hulu package, whatever, and it's $75 a month. In some cases, that's a final expense insurance for two people. You can pay for two policies, monthly premiums. And I'm talking about getting anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 expense. Let me tell you right now, we just buried my mom 2 years ago, and I want to tell you, from the funeral home, the burial site, to the headstone, that cost me roughly about $18,000. Now, I heard that that's cheap compared to some other places. Not too many people have, and if you don't, I think you should. Not too many people have burial plots already purchased and ready. But if you don't, let me just tell you, 2 years ago, that cost me about $5,500. And the funeral home, let me tell you, they're not going to do anything if you don't give them the money. I'll tell you that right now. They are not going to take pity on you. They want their money. They want to get paid. If you get the final expense insurance, and you guys correct me, I think they pay out within 48 hours. There is a concierge service that goes along with that. You can plan which I would highly advise it. I know people don't want to do it. You could actually plan your services out in advance. So that way, that burden isn't on your loved one. They can simply pick up the phone, call a number, and activate your plan. I can't even tell you when my mother passed. I can't even tell you what was in the obituary, because I didn't write it. Or excuse me, not the obituary, but the obituary, the program. I did not write it. I was grieving, and my cousins helped me out, and they wrote it out, and just what did they say? I said that's fine. I couldn't even tell you what's in it. I didn't even know I paid the amount of money that I paid for certain things, because I was grieving at the time. So when I went back and actually looked after, that the fog kind of cleared a little bit, and I said, wow, I paid that much for this. I paid that much for that. But see, you can control your cost up front by having a plan like this in place. I paid for a plan for a young lady, and you guys could back me up on this. I said, hey, whoever responds, I will pay for a plan for your child. And I think the only way they could do it, because the child was a minor, they had to insure the mother and the child on the policy, and I think it was roughly, what was it, like $40 or something like that a month?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I paid for their premium a year in advance because that's how serious I was about this. Guys, it's not a lot of money. So when I hear people say, well, I don't have money for that, or, that's for rich people, it's just not true. That's why I brought this point up, is you don't have to be in the 1% to take advantage of the rules set in place by the 1%.
Right. Right. The tools are there to actually use, but you have to have the knowledge and the understanding of what the benefits are and how that could be. But once again, if you participated in a GoFundMe, or if you've been responsible for actually burying somebody, then you may have some insight of what it takes and see the benefits of excuse me, of actually getting a policy like that. And you're right, you can map out your own services. I think you had said one thing about doing something for the children, and I think the main thing that we have to do that we don't do, I believe we don't do, I should say, is to make sure we are educating our children. The children have to be aware, even if you do map out your own plan, they have to know what phone number to call, that they have to know what's expected and what your expectations are. Even though you've already done everything, they can kind of verify, yeah, that's what mom will want, that's what dad will want, yeah, that's cool. And then they also know where your other information is. I think a lot of times when we don't respect death, we don't prepare for it. And when somebody dies, it becomes chaos because the individual may have a system for how they keep everything, but do their spouses know? Do their children know? Is there a procedure or a plan in place for the family to know where everything is kept and how to execute on everything and how they need to keep the things moving forward, especially if you have a major policy that is trying to take care of the children and the grandchildren? You have to leave instructions for that. You can't be like the Vanderbilts and have all these millions and in one extra generation it's gone.
Right.
You have to make sure that there's instructions. Whenever people come into a big sum of money, the excitement can hit with the emotion. And this money game is just that. It's a game. And if you don't have some understanding of the game, you will be quickly kicked out of the game without all your winnings. So it's very important that you understand the game and understand that a burial tool is just one step that can be put in place for when someone passes, so that the stress of having to deal with that, because as you said, you were in a fall, and if it's your mother, your spouse, your children, you're going to be in a fall. So your ability to plan, you think you're planning, you think you're doing everything correct, and months or years later, you realize when you get the invoice, it's like, wow, that wasn't what it should have been. I could have did that, different. But having these plans in place can help you map everything out so that you can see that. And if you go a step deeper and respect the death that we are all moving towards, we can help our children, our loved ones, our nieces, our nephews, our cousins, whoever, plan and prepare for that to make that transition easier, so that in the untimely passing, we can really just celebrate the life rather than trying to worry about put together money to properly bury them.
Absolutely. And, that's why, so guys, look, I'm probably not the healthiest. I'm not the youngest, but I have one. And I paid $60 or $62 a month for it. I guarantee you that most of us, if you went out to dinner, you and your wife, even if you did that one time a month, it's going to cost you at least $60 a month.
Yes, sir.
At least $60 a month. You and your wife going out to dinner, and that's a cheap date.
Yeah.
Unless you're
That's a
doing
cheat
fast
day.
food. Right.
Right, unless you're doing fast food. Yeah, if you just, grabbing some food and you have to drive through, you may be able to do it. But if you're going to go and actually sit down and actually have a tablecloth, go and sit down and have a dinner, it's going to cost you, I would venture to say, it's probably going to cost you more than $60 a month, especially if your wife enjoys a nice glass of wine or something like that. You want dessert afterwards or even some appetizers. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. So at least do if not for yourself, just think about it, you're going to be gone. This is for your loved ones. Don't put your wife or your significant other through that hardship if they don't have to. So my coverage, I've got $25,000 in coverage. That should more than cover my funeral expenses, and then probably leave a little bit left over for some other incidentals. But that is just a smart thing to do. And I wanted to just talk about that real quick, because that is actually the low hanging fruit. Because everyone's got about 20, maybe $60 a month that they could probably get rid of some frivolous things in their lives and get some insurance on themselves, so they don't have to do a GoFundMe or sell some fish, some catfish plates. And we shouldn't have to do that, guys. No. We should not have to do that. There's a much simpler way of doing this. You don't want your family to have to do that. Don't put them through that hardship, through that embarrassment. So be a good man, as Proverbs 13:22 says. Part of the other inheritance, and Brother Akili, you touched on it, was you got to leave behind the knowledge. That's another part of the legacy that you leave behind, is leaving behind that information. How do I find this? How do I continue this process? Because think about it, you're not only teaching them, but you're also teaching them so that they can teach their children, and they can continue that. That becomes a generational knowledge that's passed down, as well as the generational wisdom that's passed down. Absolutely. So that's a part of that inheritance.
Absolutely.
You're passing down that understanding as well. They know how it works. I heard, I think, Brother Stan, I think you were talking about this in our last podcast. We were talking about the Rockefellers and how they perpetuate generational wealth. And through life insurance policies, as soon as one child is born, they continue to purchase the policy. It's just day one. It's a part of the process. I could pretty much see it in my mind. So you get you get a birth certificate, so you get your birth certificate, boom, you get an insurance policy.
Right.
Probably, or you get your birth certificate, Social Security number, and an insurance policy. It just goes with the territory. And it's just a constant turnover of wealth, because why? They understand that death is certain. So as one person passes away, that money goes back into the family trust, which is another financial tool. Right. And that family trust is continually funded. And everyone knows that, hey, this is the program. This is what we do. This is how we pass it on. We understand how it works. So, right. But yeah, you mentioned that, and I just thought about that when we're talking about passing that knowledge down, that generational wealth, that legacy.
Right. That's part of your presentation is the word stewardship. That's stewardship. And I have a definition here that I have set up for it. Stewardship is the responsible and careful management, oversight, and protection of resources, assets, or responsibilities entrusted to someone's care. Well, if we got children, we got families, we're responsible in our lifetime and even outside of our lifetime to make sure they're taken care of. So we should be good stewards of that. And that was an example of what the Rockefellers have put in place. Not only the Rockefellers have put in place, the Kennedys have put in place. Every child that's born, that child automatically inherits $1 million. Of course, they take out a life insurance policy so that money could be paid back. it stays within that whole family and generations after generations after generations, and you can write out everything that you need to guide that family when you're no longer on site. These are the rules. You got to go to college. You got to study government. You got to run for office. You got to win office. If you get caught drinking, smoking, doing all those things that will take money out of the family, excommunicated, or you can't get any more loans. That's stewardship. That's making sure a tight structure for you and the family on down the line. This other thing I want to mention, it would be wisdom. So going back to a couple of points, the wisdom now, part of wisdom is judgment and experience. Now, you can't say we as a people don't have experience in death. We have experience in death. We have experience in burying people. So why are we afraid of insurance? Why do we keep pushing it aside? I'll get to it later. I'm 22, I'm 23. I don't have to worry about it now. Yes, you do. And nowadays, you got to worry about that insurance.
Yes.
And, young people getting out of here as fast as old people now. It's flipped. Young people are just getting out of here. They're not hanging around. And if the parent hadn't put anything in place on that child, well, all those years the parents have worked, that money might be gone, or they might have to do a fish fry, or they might have to, GoFundMe or, hit family members up for money. But this is a great topic because it's so serious. We need to come together and figure out a way in which me and Brother Akili's organization, I think we have a great plan to reach people and teach them and share that knowledge with them so they can understand it. I don't know if we even have to draw it out. I can see this perfect circle of child born, insurance policy, inheritance, just follow that whole life cycle and have it come back to that loop, close the loop. There's no gap in that loop. You can be taken off the loop, but there's no gap in that loop. There's no way for it to break. There's no way for it to leave. And if we need to show that, simplistic visual, then so be it. Just to get folks to understand, so we can, I guess that blood-brain barrier they call it, break through that, so you can say, okay, I'm young, I'm healthy, it's cheap. Let me get it. Let me go ahead and secure that future for myself and for my family. And some people might not think, they might not know that even young people can take out policies on not only on themselves, but they can do other members of the family too who might not have the money. You can do that. Wow. You can take care of your family if you can afford it. So there are many avenues to set your family up very affordable. Use your.
So I'm going to make sure that we have your information at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this podcast, or if you're listening, we'll make sure that we announce the information at the end of the podcast. Look, if you're listening to this podcast, you have no excuses. Now you know that there's a way that you can actually secure your family. There's a way that you can cover your expenses for your death. It's going to happen. I mean, we need to just be honest and frank about that. It's going to happen. We prefer that it be later rather than sooner. Yes, take care of yourself. Yes, eat healthy, exercise, do all of those different things. But at some point, there's an expiration date on all of us. So we might as well be good stewards over our finances. And we have to take care of our family. I love the name of your organization, Hidden Tools of Economic War. Because things are hidden in plain sight. So just like you're talking about here, these tools, this knowledge, it's not like it's a secret. But the Bible also says you got to seek out knowledge. You got to seek out wisdom. You got to seek it. There's some work that you're going to have to do on your own. Not a whole lot. If you have the internet, if you got Google, and you can find a lot of things out. But we got to seek it. Now, the only thing I would advise everyone on is to make sure that you're getting your information from certified advisors in that field, because people can tell you a whole lot of things. You know, you have people that are actually sitting in jail right now. They got some bad tax advice or some advice concerning what their requirements are when it comes to the law. So I do want to stress that. Make sure that you reach out to someone who is certified, and preferably these two brothers here, so they can advise you on insurance as far as a death benefit and final expenses. But I also want to touch on something, or I guess I want to say delve into it a little bit further. You talked about insurance for the living. So everybody thinks about insurance. Oh, when I die, that's what insurance is for. My family's going to get it, or somebody else, whoever I left the money to. But I don't think people really understand that there are living benefits of insurances, and there's different types of insurances out there. So if you would, Akili, if you want to take that one, kind of enlighten people about the different types of insurances out there and the living benefits, and why would I even be interested in something like that? Why would I even want to do this? And then do I have to have a lot of money to do it?
Well, if you have the right type of policy that has actually living benefits on it, the living benefit rider, this can help you in the case of unforeseen incidents, such as you start having strokes, and then you become actually terminally ill. In that case, you can draw as much as 80% of your policy. So let's just say hypothetically you have $1 million policy, you can draw up to $800,000 of that on your living benefits if you are actually terminally ill. So there's actually categories, depending on the actual degree of your sickness. So you can draw it anywhere from 20%, I believe, up to 80%, depending on your specific illness or your injury. So it could be something, I don't want to say as simple as, but if you're unable to perform 2 of the average daily living facilities, and I said that wrong, so forgive me. If you're unable to use the bathroom, speak, transfer yourself, or eat, if you're unable to do any of those things, that could also qualify you. And there's 2 more, because there's 6 of them. But I'm just saying that these things are something that we don't plan for, because none of us are planning on dying in the next few years, but it can happen. Or you can go out here and get in a car accident, or you can end up eating something and you have high blood pressure and you get a stroke. So there's many things that can happen, because our body is a fine-tuned instrument, and we don't control that, even though we should. But we don't control that, and we don't know what's going to happen. So these actual living benefits are something that you should have on your policy, because that's the just in case situation. So if I die, my loved ones will get the $1 million. But if I get sick before I die, then I can draw on that for my medical benefits, for my long-term care, for whatever the situation is. And each category will identify the different illnesses that would qualify, for. And it's too many to go into now, but that's what I personally have, And when I was recently actually faced with my challenges, one of the things that I was not worried about is actually taking care of the family, because I knew that I had something in place. I did not see actually death as being an issue, but it did actually come across my mind, and I realized that, okay, I have everything in place. Now, one thing that I did think about is, okay, does my wife know where everything is? So I did have that thought. I wanted to segue into something that, Brother Stan said. 2 things. The first thing is, especially if we do it young, we can get a policy with a lot of coverage for a good rate, and we don't have to pay for it for our whole lifetime. If we get it young, we can structure it so we can pay for it up to a certain point in life, and then be covered for the rest of our life if we get it young enough and we want to structure it in such a way. But once again, you have to have an agent that understands how those actual dynamics work. The other thing I want to say is a bit morbid, but I'm going to say it anyway. When Stan was talking about the different cycles, you get insurance, you're born, you get insurance, and you keep on going through the cycles. If there was a way in which every Black man was insured at birth, police killings would stop. And I say
I
that
wholeheartedly believe that.
I say that because you are no longer dealing with the protesters. You are now dealing with the insurance companies paying out all that money. So the insurance companies will shut down the unions, et cetera, because now they're paying out, they're paying out millions of dollars for individuals who are projected to live another 40, 50 years. So because insurance, from the insurance company's perspective, it's like a bet. It's like, how old are you? How's your health? Okay, so we're going to charge you this because we expect you to live this long. So if you're a baby and you are actually just born, you still got 80, 90, 100 years. So your policy is going to be actually cheap. But if 19 years old, you get shot by a police officer, and that continues to happen, then you're cutting into their actual profits margin 40, 50, 60 years earlier.
Right.
So you are infecting that. And these are the type of things that just understanding how insurance work and how the big picture of how powerful these insurance entities are and how they could grow your money and ensure that even if it's a bad year, you may not lose money or you may still grow your policy in a small increment. It's a lot of power in this. And these tools are like, it's kind of like somebody playing basketball who never played basketball in comparison to somebody who sleeps actually with their basketball. That individual who never played is going to have a hard time navigating the basketball court because they don't have the understanding of it. But that individual who plays every day can not only navigate it, they can move around it in such a smooth, fluid way that you think they are breaking the rules of the game, but they are so fluid in it because they understand the tools and the rules. And that individual who never played, they're like, okay, is this legal? Can I do this? Or what did I do wrong? And we are here to kind of bridge that gap to help you understand that you really know the game. We just got to point out the fact that you know the game and give you some specific rules to help actually tie it in so that you begin to have the actual faith in, okay, if I get this policy, I can do this with it, or this with it, or this with it. And if I don't do any of that, at a minimum, it'll do this actually when I transition. So it's a state of mind that we have to transition ourselves to. And we have to be mindful of the fact that I think part of it is a trust factor. We culturally, we have a problem trusting people with our money, because of the misuse of and I'll just leave it at that, of the misuse. So because we don't have that trust, we have to deal with individuals who may be in our best interest, want to see us win so that our families win, and ultimately they win because our family is their family.
I agree with that 100%. And I would advise everyone, always do your due diligence. I mean, we know insurance companies are insured by the federal government. We know that there's laws that govern insurance companies. So do your due diligence. Make sure that the agents that you're dealing with, that they actually who they say they are. They're actually licensed. You can actually, call the insurance company or the agencies themselves and verify this. There's state boards where you can verify that information. So do your due diligence by all means. But in the same breath, I want to say, don't just do nothing because you say, well, I don't trust anybody. Well, yeah. Okay, well, you're going to be stuck where you are. Your family, you're going to continue that cycle where your family's starting out, from the bottom, scratching to get everything that they have, which a lot of times isn't very much, while you have your counterparts who are starting way here. I mean, you're here and your counterparts are always going to be here. Right. And I can tell you that there is a huge wealth gap between the Black and the white community. And it's not because one demographic is smarter than the other, but it's that they have knowledge about certain tools that will benefit them in their financial stewardship. And they've also have the wisdom, and they've applied it, and they've put those principles in place, and they apply it, and they keep working it, and they keep working it and keep working it. But if you do nothing, you're going to get absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely nothing. So I would just say, do your due diligence. Make sure you follow up. Make sure that the agency that you're dealing with, that they're actually licensed. I mean, they're state boards. If you really, really want to do something, we do it. Trust me, we do it every day. Right. We do it every single day. If we want to go out to eat, I guarantee you, I don't care how far that restaurant is, if that's your favorite restaurant, you're going to make it a mission. You're going to go to that restaurant. Even if you got to stand outside. We got a place here in Houston called the Turkey Leg Hut. Man, people stand outside, down the street for hours to get into this place. Mm-hmm. If you want to go to a concert, you will pay. The Beyonce concert, I'm not knocking it if you want to go to Beyonce concert, but we will pay thousands of dollars for those tickets and stand in line for hours. If they're giving away Beyonce tickets, I guarantee you there'll be people sleeping outside, camping out to get Beyonce tickets. So why not invest in yourself? Why not invest in your family and the legacy of your family? You could be the one that they point to and they say, yeah, that was old Uncle Joe. It all started with Uncle Joe. Right. Uncle Joe, he set up insurance policy on everybody, and he set up a family trust, which that's another thing. And we'll probably get to that in the next one. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and call it now. We'll have a part 2 to this, but he could set up a family trust. And as Brother Akili alluded to earlier, you can have that trust do whatever you want it to do. But it just starts with a simple decision that, hey, you know what? I'm going to do things different. It's going to start with me. Right. You don't have to be rich. I don't care where your family comes from. I don't care how much money you didn't have. I don't care, what your financial situation is now. But I guarantee you that we have money, and I see us all the time. I see us out here, y'all, out here in the streets. I see us. We have money, but we have priorities on where we spend it. So you have to make up your mind. I see us out here. You look good. We're dressed very well. We're at the games, and these tickets. I guarantee you. I just looked at the last. I'm a Cowboys fan, so full disclosure. I just looked at some tickets. Man, even the cheap seats are $300. I think I saw like $360. Way up. If you want to sit down, have a decent seat, you're going to probably pay around $800. And that's just if it's just you going. Okay. So if you want to take yourself, your wife or your kids or whatever, you could end up spending, anywhere from $2,400 to $3,200 one game. Right. One Sunday afternoon. You haven't paid for parking. You haven't paid for food. That's one. How many policies could you have paid for annually? And how much money? That's cheap money. You hear the wealthy say all the time, that's cheap money. Right. So you mean I'm going to give you, in my case, $60 a month, and if something happens to me, you're going to give my wife $25,000. That's cheap money. I don't even have to think about that. You mean if I give you $200 and something a month, I've got a policy that maybe I can collect on $100,000, or, and I'm just throwing the numbers out there. Of course, these guys will be able to figure that out for you. And I have a living benefit that I could borrow from. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next podcast as well. Because like Brother Akili talked about, not only can you maybe pull $800,000 from $1 million policy to help you with some health, assist you with maybe some health issues you're having and the finances that come along with that. But what if you got a family member that comes to you, and Brother Stan touched on this and said, hey, you know, I want to start a business. I need $50,000. You could actually borrow from that plan, write up a contract between you and that family member for repayment. You just now became the bank.
Exactly.
There's, you know, as the young folks say, there's levels to this, guys. There's levels to this. So
absolutely.
Anyway, I'm gonna have to stop it here because I know we're getting to and touching on some other things that I definitely would like to talk to in the next podcast. So we're gonna call this part 1, and we'll go to part 2. But before we drop off here, let me first say thank you all so much for agreeing to do this. This is very much needed. What would be something that you would tell people right now who are kind of on the fence, thinking about it? Because like I said, tomorrow's not promised.
Oh, I'll take that. I would say if you are worried about not having, I guess, a personal advisor, and some people are on the fence because they think once they get involved in this, they, you know, every time they pick up the phone, they'll be talking to somebody new. That's where our organization, Hidden Tools of Economic War, come in. Me and Brother Akili. You can pick up the phone and call and talk to one person, ask any question that you want. If you don't feel comfortable, we'll make you comfortable. We'll figure out what you need. We'll figure out, and sometimes that's just trying to figure out your personality. Just so we want to get you cross that line, not on the line, but cross that line to secure that financial portion of your life, your family's life. So that would be my parting words. If you just need somebody to talk to, so you can go ahead and put both feet across the line, reach out to us. You know, we'll definitely be here for you.
You know, I would like to add to what Stan said. This is not the type of thing where you're going to sign and you're going to get paperwork in the mail and you're never going to see or hear from us again. You know, our desire, our plan, and our action is to keep in touch with you, to make sure that you're happy actually with your policy, to make adjustments if we have to make sure you're seeing the actual growth in your policy and answering any questions. You know, a year later, we're going to touch base with you. Year after that, we're going to touch base with you, just to make sure that you're understanding what is happening in your policy and see if you have any questions. Because one of the reasons that people will stop actually paying is they just don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm paying this money and I'm getting these statements and it's confusing. You know, what is this? You know, but if we can help to, or make ourselves available, so you can contact us, you can go on the website. Hey, I need to schedule a Zoom meeting so I can go over ABC with you. No, that's fine. You know, because the one thing that has to happen from this is we have to treat people like your family. You actually are family. You know, we understand that. They may not understand that, but we have to treat them like family and make sure that when they leave the situation, they are comfortable with the policy that they have. They understand what's going to happen from the policy. And if they get off the phone and 2-3 weeks later, they're like, I got a question, they can call, email, and say, hey, I didn't understand this, or did you say this, I can do this with that, or how does that work, whatever the case is. And if push come to shove, we can get on the phone and three-way you with the insurance carrier themselves, so you can actually hear it from, you know, their mouths. This is a family business, and when we interact with you, we're interacting with you as family, because our perspective is not the normal perspective that you're going to see on these insurance companies on TV. We're not about just closing as many people as we can. We're about helping somebody understand what they're doing, and they're making a lifelong change for themselves and their family. And they have to create a policy for their family. I don't mean a policy as in an insurance policy, a family policy, so you understand as the child, this is your responsibility. When you have children, this is your responsibility. Your grandchildren should know ABC. This is this is actually a mandate. I mean, ultimately, you are the God of your family, and you have to take on that responsibility as what would a God do. And if we're thinking about it properly, that's something that's ever evolving that we can never complete, you know. But if we think of it in such a way, we're always evolving our thinking and our plans and our actual desires so that we are striving to be that.
Man,
You know,
that's awesome. So tell people listening, and like I said, for those watching, I'll have it here on the screen, but for those listening, how can they get in contact with you all?
Our website is htoew.com. That's the acronym for Hidden Tools of Economic War. Phone numbers are 510-602-2041 would be how you reach myself. Stan's phone number is 478-707-7603. You know, you can actually call us. If we're out of the office, the call will forward over to us. You can leave a message there or send a text message, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, and one thing I want to leave with people is this. And look, we're not telling you that money is everything. For the Bible does say the love of money is the root of all evil. But then keep reading, because a little further down it says, but money answereth all things.
Right.
You know, we live in a physical world. Things cost money. I just came from the grocery store. You know, I didn't give them a prayer for payment. I had to actually exchange some currency for those goods. Gas costs money. I just had to have my car fixed last week. That costs money. I can't just get that on a handshake and a smile, you know, because, you know, they think I'm a nice guy. Burial expenses cost money. Your daughter wants to go to college. That costs money. Money answereth all things. And I think you get my point. I'll read again Ecclesiastes 7:12, because I just think that really drove it home. It says, for the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. Guys, if you don't read any other scripture from anything I put out today, go to Ecclesiastes 7:12. And I'm so passionate about this and driving this home because it is so vital that we gain the proper knowledge, wisdom, and understanding surrounding financial stewardship. And we could literally change the lives of generations to come in our families by making a simple decision, by just getting some insurance. Looking at not just insurance from a death benefit standpoint, but also from a living benefit standpoint. Mm-hmm. And like I said, next week, we're going to transition into talking a little more about the living benefits and how you could actually become your own bank in that way as well. And talking a little bit more also about meeting on an annual basis, that family office. You should be doing a checkup every year to see where we are. Do we have enough coverage? Is everything still intact? Are all policies paid up? You know, just a financial stewardship meeting for your entire family. Once again, like I said, I'm Morris Jackson. This has been Religion, Economics, and Politics, and I want to thank you for tuning in. And we will be back with part 2. And as always, be blessed and be encouraged.